Hi, this is Kelly Woods with the Wildland Fire Lessons Learned Center. The episode of our podcast that you're about to listen to was recorded in 2022. It's a conversation between my friend Tyler Doggett and me. For reasons outside our control, we were unable to publish the episode immediately after Tyler and I recorded it. That barrier has recently been removed, and we can now post this episode. In a heartbreaking turn of events, last year, Tyler passed away following a routine medical procedure. In talking with his family and the friends he considered family, we decided we wanted to move forward and share the episode with you. It was important to Tyler to share his story in hopes of helping others. We want to honor him by doing that. This is the episode as Tyler intended you to hear it.
Rule number 1, stay alive. Rule number 2, see rule number 1. Rule number 3, always get up one more time. It's like anchor, flank, and pinch. Works every time.
This is the Wildfire Lessons Podcast. Our goal is to promote learning by revealing the complexity and risk in the wildland fire environment. We share the lessons. The learning that follows is up to you. Hi, I'm Kelly Woods, Director of the Wildland Fire Lessons Learned Center. On today's episode, I sit down with my friend Tyler Doggett for a candid visit about some of the mental health difficulties that often accompany a career in wildland fire. Tyler and I have been friends for a number of years, and I've seen him during his highs and his lows, and honestly, he's seen the same with me. I'm grateful to Tyler for sharing his story. It's a story of a chance search and rescue, a shattered femur, battles with alcohol, and the loss of loved ones. It's also the story of gaining perspective, seeking help, healing, and hope. I want to warn you that in our conversation, we tackle some difficult topics. We talk about how suicide has touched Tyler's life. We also talk about a couple of fatality fires which played a central role in Tyler's path. One of those is the South Canyon Fire, which claimed the lives of 14 firefighters in Colorado in 1994. The other fire we're going to talk about is the Bishop Fire, where 2 single-engine air tanker pilots were killed when their aircraft collided midair in Nevada in 2020. You can find more information about both of these incidents at our incident review database on our website, lessons.wildfire.gov. I appreciate Tyler's willingness to be open and share his struggles as well as his triumphs. I think you will too. Lucky enough to get to sit down today with Tyler Doggett. Tyler, thanks so much for joining me and being willing to chat.
Yeah, my pleasure. Be entertaining to say the least.
Yes, I expect it will. So Tyler, I know now your current job is exclusive use air attack for the Elko District, Nevada BLM.
Mm-hmm.
But you have had a really incredible path getting here. I think a really unusual way you got into fire and kind of what, the path you followed to get to the air attack job. So why don't you just kind of talk about who you are and how you got to this spot?
It's funny. I would like to claim I had some sort of master plan, but it just kind of happened. I made the best of the situation, took advantage of the things, and, finally getting to figure out who I was and what I wanted made it a lot easier to choose fire. I was the epitome of a Gen Xer. Mm-hmm. My parents were in their mid-40s when I was born in 1967. I had 2 brothers that were 11 and 16 years older. So, I was pretty much an only child. And father was, my mom and dad had their own lives. And, so that's kind of fostered, I think, a lot of this, this cavalier outdoor kind of, devil may care, sort of risk-taking adventure, latchkey kid, that you got out of the Gen X generation, But, I had 3 channels, no video games, It was based, my parents would be like, get your dog, leave the house, be home by dinner, don't die,
Yeah.
That was it.
Those are easy rules to follow.
Oh, well, like I said, they had their own lives, and I think it was that freedom to make my own mistakes, and God bless my parents. They put up, I had an intervention before intervention was such a thing, and but they put up with a lot. Full-on country club brat, well-to-do family, We born in Connecticut and split my time between Ohio, which is where the family that, the winters were spent, and the Carolina coast in the summers. And that's where the family's from. We're a Southern family. And, it was a great way to grow up. But, suddenly when you get to that point of like, okay, here, I'm going to graduate high school. Now what? And to my father's credit, he knew me better than I did. And he was the one that, I can't remember what it was, but it would have been about the mid-'80s, that he recommended something along the lines of forestry or government, just because he'd see me grow for all those years. And but I was dead set. I wanted to go to environmental law. I wanted to be a lawyer. But I ended up at a college in Central Florida. And good Lord, that was fun. But ended up with an environmental science degree. And then the plan was to take a little time off, and then go to law school, which I did. So graduated in '89, hung out South Carolina for a little bit, and then took off and went to Colorado, did the ski bum thing. Always a big skier, family ski trips and all. And then went back to law school, and I left Vail, Colorado, and went to a small Southern Baptist law school in a dry county in North Carolina.
I cannot imagine you in that scenario.
Yeah, needless to say, not only was I never going to be a decent lawyer, I didn't fit in with that crowd very well.
Yeah.
So, I took my first semester exams and said, all right, let's go back to Colorado, go with the ski bum lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And that's what that decision was probably the first one that put me on the path to wildfire. Mm-hmm. Unbeknownst to me, working for Vail Associates, doing ski patrol, skier service, things like that. And my roommate, he was involved with a Vail Mountain Rescue Group, which was Eagle County Sheriff, volunteer, we do avalanche, search and rescue, swift water, any of that stuff, and it was old school. We had pagers and everything, and it was cool. Learned a lot about some neat stuff. And then through that program, I got introduced to a guy named Tom Wagenlander, who was the Minturn, Colorado volunteer fire department chief. He inquired, he goes, hey, do you want to go do wildfire? And I'm like, okay. Wasn't quite sure what it was and what it entailed, but, essentially the Colorado State Forestry or Colorado State Forestry Service had gifted the big old deuce and a half tender with split, with 2,000-gallon tender. And being that I was the only person that could pass the step test and drive a diesel split axle, I was basically their de facto wildland firefighter. And it was a lot of fun. It's funny. I think that a lot of concussions down the road, so my memory's a little dodgy. But I was in 92 or 93. I was trying to find my old red cards. And but they weren't really seasons. I maybe went to one or two fires. Cause it was a cool exposure. And, being able to just meet some of the people. And it was mostly working with the local folks there in the White River. And super helpful, really nice people. But it was never really an end goal. It was still kind of a summer, volunteerism gig. As things would have it, it was, we were doing, the search and rescue thing. And I'll never forget the day. But I was at work, and pager went off, and it was July 6, 1994. And, the pager didn't say much. It was just, it was a SAR, search and rescue. And I gave my roommate a call, and he said, I don't know. It's in, it's west of here. And so Eric and Brian and I, we hopped in our rig, and we drove to Glenwood Springs. And that's when we realized that there had been a horrible tragedy on this mountain called Storm King. Mm-hmm. And that was really kind of the first exposure to like a big legit wildfire for me, other than, seeing some stuff or from a distance. It kind of started making sense. And basically we were there, we were missing two firefighters, Richard Tyler, Robert Browning. And we got
they were heliattack on the South Canyon fire.
Heliattack on them. And we, all we knew is they were missing. We understood there were fatalities the day before, but that was it. So basically, we went into our search and rescue. We got a helicopter ride up there, got all kitted out in our Nomex and everything. And search and rescue. It's, you never know what you're going to come across. But most of it, what my experience with it, were pretty good happy outcomes. I wasn't exposed to much. I had never seen a dead body. I'd never seen huge trauma. But I was working on my EMT at the time and all that stuff. And but so we get up there, we get our research patterns, and we just do our thing, working contours, staying in communication with all the folks. And it just, what struck me is how devastating it looked after the fact. Yeah. Because if, the uniqueness of that area was a very red soil. And then you had just, it was all PJ and Gamble's Oak and stuff like that had been slicked off. So, I mean, it was, apocalyptic. It really was. And for first kind of exposure, you're like, wow. Yeah. It leaves an impact. And so we're doing our thing. And, long story short, I ended up at this ravine and I kind of parked myself there, was going to have some lunch. And, as I looked around, everything was kind of monochromatic. It was either that red soil or black trees. And then suddenly I saw two things that stood out, and they weren't the same color. I found the last two firefighters from Hell Attack, and
Rich Tyler,
Robert Browning, yeah. And it was hard to fathom. From that moment on, I never had any illusion of what fire could do.
Yeah.
The consequence, and fortunate or unfortunate, I had to hang out there for about 3 or 4 hours because I was basically in control, with the scene control, scene stability with the, no one else was touching, and we had to wait for the coroner to come up, and it blew my mind.
I can't imagine what that would have been like, because just going on the mountain today, just been about a year since I was up on the mountain, and it has impact.
There's big medicine up there.
It still
is, for every year up until basically I think my knee gave out, I used to hike it at least once a year, go pay respects, because it was, and the profound effect of that site was one thing, but then the other was a positive thing. Was I was so impressed by the firefighters and their recognition of what had happened, but there was still a job to do. And it was really impressive as far as like, these people are professionals. And I'm blanking his name. I think he was the FMO, Winslow. I can't remember his last name, but we got the group together between the firefighters up on the hill and the search and rescue folks. And I wish I could remember it, but it was a very profound sort of closure moment to that. Not only, it was for the firefighters. We just happened to be there. We didn't have anything really invested in it, but it was very profound. And I was really impressed.
And
it stuck. It stuck in my memory big time. And so we get back to Glenwood Springs. I remember we're hanging out in the courthouse trying to figure out if they needed us for anything else. And they had to do all their stuff, but we ended up getting released that day. And still, they'll never forget this part. So I've never seen a dead body before. And we're driving back on I-70 just east of Glenwood Canyon, and we're suddenly first on scene of a single car rollover, 15 and a 16-year-old both ejected, and the 15-year-old expired in my lap. And good Lord.
What a day.
Yeah, it just... It's hard to fathom. Even now, with everything, the water under the bridge, it was, I quickly realized I did not want to be EMT. I'm not a blood and gore guy. Yeah. I laugh about it, but those people that can manage it are impressive, because I can't.
Yeah, for sure.
But so, the end story of all this is I was really, really impressed with these professional firefighters. And that really, really stuck with me. And it got me to get further involved in it. And, it just...
And I know you had stops along the way on cruise, hotshot crew, fuels crews.
Yeah, so I came back. I took off. I went to Chicago for a little bit. Thought I'd try the corporate big city life again. And again, my father was shaking his head going, son, you know better. But so I came back. I left a great job in Chicago, moved back to Colorado. I was applying for, again, corporate jobs because, like I said, that's what I had drummed into my head. But also, I've been applying for Forest Service jobs, wildfire jobs. One cool thing about Chicago is I got my pilot's license. I was flying a bunch, and that was something I was looking at. I knew aviation was a big part of wildfire, but so I was offered a good job in Denver, and the same day I was offered a GS4 assistant engine supervisor. I think it paid $7 an hour up on the Arapahoe Roosevelt National Forest.
And I know which one you took.
Yeah. They were so disappointed, Yeah. Of course, my parents were just... My friends that knew me from that other life, they were like, what in the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
It didn't compute. No one had a reference point from that world. And here's this, kid that was East Coaster and a beach person, sailor, windsurfer, and here he ended up in Colorado taking this job. And of course, my parents didn't have any idea.
Yeah.
I kept a lot of the...
Yeah, I can relate to that for
I
sure.
kept a lot of there, but it was great. I had never been happier. I had the time of my life.
So you were fully, at that point, you were totally sucked in.
I was done at that point, and
yeah.
But I had the opportunity to go out and do a detail with Alpine Hotshots. And I'd known a couple of those guys. We used to ski together, Dave Hamrick, Dave Nemi, the soup and the foreman. And they were kind of like, dude, come on, man, you're fit. Come to the Hotshot crew. And I'm like, yeah. So it was great. I marked timber that winter and then started with Alpine the next year.
Cool.
And Hotshot life was fun. Alpine was a lot of fun.
So you spent some time there and ultimately came out to Boise to jump.
That's what really appealed to me. Not only because the autonomy of a lot of positions, but it was the training that came along as well to move into that. And so I did a couple years on Alpine and then ended up at Grand Teton National Park, running the fuels crew, working for Mac McFarland, who, I had been blessed with great supervisors and great mentors. And, I owe my path to these guys. As much as I do, they helped steer me in the right direction. And that was 2000 because we didn't do much fuels work. Busy. And so that season, I was still career. I was at 1039, I think. It was temporary. And that fall is when I really started applying to jump bases. So I accepted a gig at Boise Smoke Jumpers starting in 2001. That was the first year that Boise had done a rookie class. They'd always kind of piggybacked with Alaska. And to this day, the rookie trainers are like, we didn't know how far to push you guys. And it was... I can't believe I got through it. That's where I came up with that mantra of one more step.
You guys had a pretty impressive group of rookie bros there with you too. It was
good Lord, yeah.
Good class for sure.
Yeah.
So, so you were actively a Boise smoke jumper, and
I was a rookie, and I made a little mistake on my 19th jump of rookie training. And we were jumping up by Idaho City, and it was basically two jump spots. One side was, we called it the campfire spot, really small, tall timber. Then we had Ticktown, which was a bunch of willows, and then I can't remember the name for the big spot, but it was, considerably bigger. But so jump 18 of the day, and I'm still a rookie, and I flew up. My pattern was way too high. And I knew when I came in on final looking at that little spot, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take the big spot. And I did. Took the big spot, which is what I should have done. I did the right thing, had a nice landing, got back up. But I was the only rookie who missed the campfire spot. So I made a decision that I was going to get in that spot no matter what. And I did. Except I flew the exact same pattern. I held the canopy in a stall way too long and basically exceeded the flight characteristics and ended up vaporizing my femur. I think the doc said they lost count about 23 pieces.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was pretty, so that basically, I thought that was going to be it for me, that kind of catastrophic injury. And, it is what it was, it is what it is. So I went back to South Carolina for a while. and then came back and worked at NIC that summer as helping out with dispatch.
At the National Interagency Coordination Center.
Yeah, and that was actually a really valuable experience. This was before Ross, and so it was a lot of phone calls and just getting to meet people all over the country, and then understanding that logistic end of wildfire. It's invaluable intel, when you're in operation, because once again, you get that perspective. You see both sides of it. But it was a good summer. I met a lot of great friends, met a lot of really lifetime friends.
Yeah.
There.
And what was the healing like? I mean, were you going? I'm assuming you were going through PT and all those things.
A lot of it was on my own. I remember when I met back South Carolina, I spent a lot of time in the ocean, just trying. Because this has now probably been in 2.5 months on crutches, and I've spent a lot of time in the ocean walking, just trying to get that muscle memory back. And mind you, I lost a lot of my range of motion, and I would. Because I was working the swing shift at NIC, and I would go to the jump base and sit on that stationary bike, just trying to get one revolution, just going back and forth, kind of working it. And it finally worked out. And
what was it like emotionally? What was going through your head emotionally when you get there? You're 18 jumps in or whatever. You're well on your way in, and had to totally change directions there.
It's funny, fortunately or unfortunately, KTVB, the local news station, filmed the whole jump. So I get to relive this every year.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's violent. If anyone's seen it out there, it's I bounce, But it's funny, there's one moment, and I think the camera just focusing on I'm wiggling my toes to, that I have sensation, and I just kept apologizing to everybody, because I thought, it was my mistake. I felt horrible. I felt sick to my stomach, because I said my RBs had to go out and jump again that day. They put them straight back in the plane. But I really I felt horrible, because they'd spent all this time. And the other part was my investment into my fitness. Good Lord.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest part, was watching my body waste away, which caused me to re-break my femur that summer in probably late July.
Oh, man.
And I was staying with friends here in Boise, and it was a day off or before, I can't remember. But I was out walking around a soccer field, and all of a sudden I get this excruciating pain in my knee. So I call up the doc, and he's like, "Come on in," and they take an X-ray, and I'll never forget it. We've known each other ever since. 20 years I've known him. I'm a freaking flyer there. Yeah. But he walked in, looked at me, threw the X-ray up, and he just goes, "You're an idiot. How does a little guy like you break titanium?" And sure enough, I had broken the screws that held the titanium rod in place. So it re-broke, which bought me, I think, another 3 months on crutches. But in the end result, it ended up that my legs were both the same length again, which, that helped. That helped a lot with my longevity. But what was funny is that doctor, he called it almost to the day or to the month, but he said, "I bet in about 8 years your hip's going to go." Yeah. And sure enough,
yeah,
that's another story. But it was tough. It was really hard. Also, I was closing in on the 35 years old. I was an old rookie. And, back then we didn't have that 37. It was, if you didn't get your permit at 35, you were SOL.
Yeah.
And fortunately, my performance during rookie training and then my performance afterwards, I had a good attitude back then.
Yeah.
Unlike now, where I'm all jaded and sour. But I really did. I was really proud of my achievements at that point. And, it was a great group of people. Really
so
was.
You, what was the next season like for you?
Scary shit.
Yeah. So you went back to the base.
So I went back to the base. I got my permanent, and I was introduced to they call it the Ram Air Refresher, new guy Ram Air, because I didn't get the full jumps and I didn't get the experience. So I we had 3 transfers from the Forest Service, and the 4 of us basically did like just a parachute portion of it. And that first jump out of the plane, that was one of the scariest things I've ever done. Because, it was, you know, I knew exactly what could happen, and I was scared to death.
Absolutely.
But it all went well. You know, I had a great time. Season of 2002.
Did it get easier each time then from
yeah,
there?
yeah.
Just getting that first
Just
one.
getting that first one out of the way. And really that, you know, it was such a heavy concentration on parachute handling. I became much more comfortable. And especially because, man, I was, with the exception, I was probably one of the smallest people at the jump base for a long time.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a big canopy. And so I couldn't fly like the rest of the folks. I always had to do my own thing. And like, you know, I float. If I turn downwind, I'm not getting, we always called it having motor. I had zero motor. I had to basically back up into the jump spot if there was any more than 300 yards of drift, or I'd end up in a tree, which is no fun either. But
yeah.
But it was good. You know, I was fully immersed in it, and, you know, it was great. I mean, it was every opportunity that I wanted to pursue, training-wise or whatnot, was there. And I did, man. I took every opportunity I could. I was interested in fire behavior, was a big part of it, and because it fascinated me. You know, I mean, back in the day, I got to become pretty good friends with Paul Gleason. And it was when he was after Zigzag and he was working for Colorado State that he and I talked a lot about fire behavior and the magic science, you know.
Well, and you did go on to become a qualified F-band.
Oh, yeah. I was an F-band for a long time on the Great Basin teams. And boy, good Lord, what an experience. You know, Paul would always talk about being a student of fire. And that was one of the things that he was never overconfident, and he was a very humble man. I mean, being who he was.
Well, that's a big part of being a good student of fire,
God,
right? Being humble and not assuming that you've seen it all, done it all, right?
Which is, I always say, there's nothing more dangerous than a second-year firefighter. I was that guy. But Paul always valued everybody's experience. You know, be damned. It was, you know, he valued people's impressions and what they were seeing and what they were thinking might happen. And he was always you know, that's what started the love of fire, and being a student of fire was through him. And it was cool. I learned a lot about wildfire, but it was cool. Still doing operational smoke jumper stuff. And but then that day came when I had to have my hip replaced. I had a couple fires. I think it would have been summer of 2007. That, I mean, embarrassing enough, I would have to call somebody on the radio to come help me stand up because my leg would lock and it would just stop, and I became a liability. And that's when I knew I had to get out of operations, get the hip replaced, and then see, you know. So, which is good. I mean, the hip replacement's awesome, but my doc was very clear. He's like, if you go back to smoke jumping, if you get injured, it will kill you. He goes, if you have something catastrophic, he goes, this is going to kill you. And of course, he had to accentuate it by saying that big titanium rod is going to run right up through you. And I'm like, okay.
Goodness.
Okay, copy. I'll find something else. Yeah. So, you know, graciously enough, I was applying for stuff, and my F-band background was what got my foot in the door with NWCG as a project developer. And that was really, you know, they were rewriting S490, and the guy that was working on it, it wasn't his specialty, and so it was great. It was really rewarding to be able to work on that. Yeah. And also, you know, I mean, I could look at a page and immediately know, well, that's not right. We need to change it. You know, because I've been doing it so much, and then teaching fire behavior, and then working on that course, and then doing F-band and stuff. It was really interesting, but that's when the great and holy burnout came. Yeah. And, you know, fortunately for me, Steve Price, might as well be my brother, but one of my best friends, he was in the early days of the Air Attack program. And he's like, dude, you're a pilot. You get this stuff. You know, you get your time in with the jumpers. You understand airspace. Let's try Air Attack.
So you went to S378, opened your task book on Price's advice.
Yeah, I did. And of course, you know, the SOP was, you know, you would do ride-along, sit in the back seat, blah, 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 you know, just to see how it's done. But of course, my very first trainer, bless his heart, Greg Haxby, first flight ever. He goes, get in the front seat, dude.
Hexby's one of the greatest guys there is in
Oh
the
my
business.
goodness, yeah. He really is, but I'll never forget that. It was quite an experience, and the funny part is I actually painted a bunch of my smoke jumper bros. I mean, center punched.
Was this intentional?
No, it was not. It was not. It was me not knowing what I was doing.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it was a seat load. It was a small fire, but there's a lot of things could be lost in translation, between the air and the ground when you're just learning. Nonetheless, it was cool. I really enjoyed it. I mean, it appealed not only my pilot program, the pilot side of me, but it afforded me a really cool viewpoint of fire behavior, because I had that programmed in my head, but seeing it from the air and then having that smoke jumper perspective, that hot shot perspective, that engine perspective, here I am building all these little different points of view where, you can finally see, it's not like you've always been an air attack.
Yeah.
You understand, hey, is this getting through the canopy, the retardant and whatnot? So it was just neat having the operational background first.
What is like one thing you could share about the perspective from an ATGS, an air attack group supervisor, from that perspective that perhaps people who are operationally engaged on the ground might not know?
It's just your scope, your perspective. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you're, depending on what you've seen on the fire, but I mean, you're down, you have your perspective of the fine detail on the ground and limited big picture. And the air attack's the opposite.
Right.
So I don't have that, through years and years experience, and it depends on if I'm able to get down to that 500 AGL to at least look at the ground a little bit and see, is that rock, is it sand, is it cheatgrass, So if I'm up at altitude, I don't have that fine detail.
Yeah.
But I've got the big picture. I see what it's going into. I see the terrain. I see the clouds. I see the weather. I see how the plane's operating. I understand, is the wind picking up, things like that. It's just a holistic versus, it's kind of coarse detail versus fine detail, but big picture, small picture.
Yeah.
And it's trying to, that's one of the biggest challenges, of course, is getting the ground and the air, make sure we're both on the same page, because it's so easy to make assumptions. It all lends to being able to be efficient, effective, mitigate our risks, and help the ground complete their mission, catch the fire.
Yeah.
And that's it, I mean, I'm just there to support the ground folks and make sure I get them efficient, effective operations, try to keep everybody from getting in trouble, and I defer from the word safe, because safe's meaningless to me. It's not what is safe? So I say mitigate risk, mitigate hazards. We deal with a lot of things, and so down safe. Yeah. No,
I get that. It's hard to. Safety is sort of a moving target, a hard thing to ever ensure when you're dealing with wildland fire, right?
It's one of those things. Like when NWCG, when we were working on those courses, you had objectives. And your objective need to be meaningful and measurable.
Yes.
And, it's like you will learn 3 ways to roll up a hose. There's an objective. Provide for firefighter and public safety first, not an objective. It's not attainable. It's not measurable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, safety third.
We've had a lot of discussions about the word safety recently, so that's very, very timely. I do want us to be able to spend a little bit of time talking about, so you make the transition, you decide to leave NWCG.
Well, let's here's some reasoning behind that.
Yeah.
So, I've always been an operational guy. I've always been a tip of the spear kind of guy. And granted, the summer was great, but the nature of the work at NWCG, these are long-term projects. And I am very much, being kind of, trained as a child by my father for sales. And he said, one thing about sales, you always know where you stand. Good day, bad day. You could look at that. And that stuck with me. And that's why these years-long projects, it didn't work for me. I was really, really frustrated. And, it became about the process and not the end result.
Yeah. It wasn't a great fit.
It was definitely a square peg round hole.
Yeah.
And being so, we can kind of get into the mental health aspect of fire too at the time. And, hey, my life's an open book. You know, I've had a lot of mental health problems in my family, myself included, before this. Both of my brothers had some pretty rough spots. And so I kind of knew this was coming. And hey, man, I've always been a partier rock star. So there was always alcohol in my life. And, you know, it got to that point where, you know, so here I am. I've got a new hip, got this new job, just got married, moved into a new house, and it wasn't me. And, you know, the only blame on anything's on myself, you know, but between the maybe not being honest with myself with the position I'd taken, I should have left sooner. It was affecting my mental health. I was really unhappy. My home life was really unhappy. My wife was not pleased with me. I wasn't the same person. And instead of trying to actively do something about it, I started drinking a lot. And hey, man, you know, being a partying rock star with all my partying rock star jumper buddies, you know, it's a big part of our culture. But it became way too much. And so here I am in this, and great, NWC was a great job for the right person. And then having the summers, I've loved Air Attack. My home life, between me being just an unhappy, miserable person, drinking himself silly, and dealing with anxiety and depression, my wife got tired of it. And it was, you know, we both avoided the elephant in the room. And finally it came to a head in 2014. And she said, I can't do this anymore. And she said, I'm out. And so, of course, I started drinking like a champion. I took it to a new level at that point, you know, and that's when the really bad, dark moments, I call, came along. And, you know, let me see, my brothers had suicide attempts before this. I knew there were issues, being that they were much older than I was. They were late onset. And that caught my attention. Because not only, you know, am I doing everything wrong, not taking care of myself, you know, my marriage has crumbled. You know, she was my best friend, loved her to death, you know, but I burned that bridge. And I just kept making it worse by drinking and drinking and drinking. Wouldn't, you know, I mean, I was just drunk all the time. I just needed the pain to go away. And, you know, so shortly thereafter, I get a phone call, and my oldest brother is gone. Very abrupt. And my middle brother, 6 days later. So in a week, I lost both my brothers, and we were really tight. So needless to say, I kept drinking.
Yeah, I remember seeing you on your way back east.
Man, just savage. I still can't believe that, you know. And you know, my oldest brother had two suicide attempts that we knew about. My oldest brother's wife made it her mission for him to continue living and finding, but he was not honest in the care he was seeking. And he was supposedly doing a lot of things health-wise that he wasn't. His actual cause of death was a widowmaker heart attack. But he had supposedly been doing all this work. His heart issues ran in my family, but he wasn't. So it's my speculation is he knew what he was doing. He just wanted to end it. If he couldn't do it himself, he would do it another way. And then my middle brother, you know, I put him on the airplane, told him I loved him, and he was dead within 10 hours. And that is just, good Lord, you know.
Yeah.
Fortunately, though, I finally did get my act together a little bit there post-divorce. And I did find a good therapist and helped me get through the divorce part. And then I think, you know, I'd picked up some skills, which probably got me through my brothers.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, I've come to the conclusion that I'm grateful all this stuff has happened to me because I got through it. And I'm stronger for it, you know? And so I go down, I think that was the first, I can't remember. So 2014 I was covering the Boise Forest Air Attack platform. And, I was, like I said, I was drinking pretty hard. I was pretty mentally unstable, miserable, depressed. And I had a lot of really honest discussions with myself each morning. Am I fit for duty? And I took myself out a lot of days when I wasn't. But I noticed that the good days started outnumbering the bad days, and things got better. Things definitely got better. And I got to admit, the summer prior was my first full. I covered the Elko Air Attack platform that summer, 2013. It's harder,
yeah,
because I was doing lead plane or ASM stuff and all that. But after 2014 and into 2015, I realized I needed to make a change, and I applied for the Elko Air Attack career seasonal position. And I will never forget how forlorn and lonely I was that first night. I thought I'd made the worst mistake of my life. I really did. And it turned out to have been one of the best decisions of my life.
To take the job
in Elko, because it was great. I mean, my supervisor, Alco Kachia, is phenomenal. He's another one of those mentors, except nobody will let me call him my supervisor. They make me call him my handler. But he's an incredible mentor in and of himself, and a great friend, and just been a wonderful person to have the privilege to work with, But still battling those demons, the mental health stuff.
Yeah.
And, it's, you go through that kind of trauma, and I'm not, all these different lives I've led, between being a ski bum, beach bum, smoke jumper, all that stuff, I'm not built for any of it. I mean, I guess that's why everything's so destroyed now, but body-wise. But the mental health aspect of it was, you never really realized how taxing it was. Yeah. The being away, the being, a part of, the injuries, the constant risk. And then as a career seasonal, especially as an air attack, you're always waiting for the phone call, waiting for the phone call. And you never know, is it going to be a front range, Wasatch Front, Sierra Front, Boise Front gobbler? Is it going to be a good deal two-manner? But you're hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. So you're always you're at constant baseline anxiety. And then the season would go along, and then boom, season would end. So it was great. In the summers, I was taking care of myself, doing the right things and stuff. But the minute winter would come around, I would suddenly go from 100 to 0. Yeah. And I get bored. And then the voices in the head. Yeah. Cocktails, started drinking again. Yeah. With friends, without friends, didn't matter, man.
There have been times when I've come up to your place to do a wellness check because you're like radio silence, and it's been.
I mean, for a person that deals with anxiety and depression, I was doing everything exactly wrong. Yeah. Isolating, not talking to people, and then having these dark thoughts, these suicidal ideations. I really only had one moment that I thought might be it. I mean, I was ready, and thank goodness I made the phone call. Called Steve Price, and Steve gave me. We call it our 2 rules. Rule number 1: stay alive. Rule number 2: see rule number 1. And if you live with those 2, you're good. And then over the years, I added rule number 3 was always get up one more time, because it's never gonna end. Bad things are just gonna happen. They don't happen to me, they just happen. And the only thing I'm in control of is how I react to it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been a big part. Trying to frame these things, not only through all the therapy and stuff I've talked to about dealing with the non-medical side, whether it's brain chemistry or stuff like that. Because I've never been a big medication person. I've tried things over the years, but a lot of the side effects were prohibitive, especially with flying. I mean, it can make you a little wonky, and that's the last thing you want to do.
You just never found anything that was going to work for
exactly.
you. It seems to me, as your friend watching you, over the years, you kind of reached a turning point. I mean, really, in the last couple years, where you really, and it seemed like a pretty pivotal point was related to the Bishop fire. Is that an accurate statement?
It is. It was funny a little bit. It was the winter of 1920, and the Bishop Fire was in 2020. It was that winter was, I could have my dates wrong again, but I don't know. I mean, I think that one of the winters I had to actually go to the hospital through I needed a medical induced detox because, winter was coming off. I was fixing to go back to work, and I'm like, all right, dude, you have been drinking like a champion for months now, and it's time to stop.
I remember you and I talked. Do you remember that? You called me and you said, I'm not doing well. I'm not doing well. And I remember I said, okay, I can come up right now, but I said, can I call Nelda?
Yeah.
Nelda St. Clair, who I mean, so many people know Nelda and her connections and the way she takes care of people.
And we got to give credit also to Mike Kidwell and Jim Duzak, those, and Jerry Drzezinski. Those one of my other great friends, and Steve.
You just had this incredible group.
Holy smokes! You want to talk about a support system? One of the most grateful things I'm grateful about in this world is my friends and my support system, and being part of this. It's just an incredible group of people. We all have our flaws, but you know what? Absolutely. We're okay with it. Big deal. No big deal. We got each other's back. And,
and that winter, it was that the event we're talking about where we, you went in for medical detox.
Yeah, there were two of them. Yeah. The first one didn't stick. It lasted for about 3 weeks, but that was just I went into an ER and he was annoyed I was there and basically threw some drugs at me, kicked me out the door. That lasted about 3 weeks. I
think that the second one though was. It was the winter before the Bishop Fire.
I think it was 2020. Because these were about 3 weeks apart, and I think it was spring of 2020.
I think it was too, and it was not that much before the aircraft came on, and you were going to start engaging, right? Yep. So,
I treat this job very, very, very seriously. Bad things can happen very, very quickly, and everything's fine until it's not. Yeah. And so that's one thing. I mean, I might joke about it, but no, I'm serious. Dead serious. This is a very important job, and my shit's in a box when I'm in that plane. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering if you would talk just a little bit about the Bishop Fire.
Well,
because what happened, just briefly, and then let's think about or talk about how the aftermath of that, how you were maybe differently prepared than.
Summer 2020 in the basin, we were busy. We were busy. I mean, I can't remember. I think that whole summer, we had 430 some flight hours, and I can't remember how many. I think it was on 87 different fires, and things were going big. These were desert gobblers, but we had Wasatch Front fires. I mean, we were up in the Boise, Payette, Sierra Front, and I'm happiest when I'm busy. If I could fly every day, all day long, I would. I love it. It's a great job. It's so much fun, but it's taxing. I mean, all that stress and everything. And we hit the ground running in 2020, and it was a busy season, and we were bopping back and forth. And usually about mid-July, monsoonal kind of time is when southern Nevada slows down, and I just migrate north. Whether, I go stage in Ely for a little bit, but usually I'll just go back to Elko and stage out of there because it's a great location. I could be Sierra Front, Wasatch Front, Boise Front pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But so we were back up in Elko on July 30th, and it was the Bishop Fire. I can't remember if I'd been there the day before. I don't think I had. I think I was there. Yeah, they all blend together. I mean, one desert gobbler to another desert gobbler. Unless something happens, I don't remember one fire the next.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, so many things. But, so it was July 30th, and Greg Birch was the first air attack of the day on that fire. He came out of Cedar City. He did first shift. I got the resource order for relief air attack. So I came down and did second shift. And usually, I'll be guessing, but it was Probably, I think Greg got up on there pretty early. So, I mean, it was, maybe 10 a.m., something like that. And, big desert gobbler. It started down low in the grass, of course, near the Elgin Carp Road by Elgin, Nevada. And it had run kind of like southeast northwest up into some pretty high terrain, got into a PJ, and then there's a little bit of mixed conifer and stuff up high. But it was a long, narrow fire. I would call it medium large. I can't remember the acreage, but it was big. It was decent sized. And so we get down there, and I always joke about basin fires. Everything's fine till it's not, because they are. And but when we got there, they don't get any better. The Bishop, everything looked great. Granted, we were picking up some stuff. We had dozers putting line in. We were supporting this mission, and we were just buttoning up some of the heel and stuff. And a lot of the high country kind of ran out of fuel. So it was, I wouldn't say complacent, because you're never, I'm always watching. But it was meh. There was nothing remarkable about it. And so we're going through doing our shift and normal thing. And I remember we had lead 4-9 with lead 4-2 trainee. So Greg and Travis, they were the lead plane on the scene, and we were having a couple seats come in every now and again. We, of course, were sharing resources, had heavies, and but we were just kind of doing our thing, and we were up high. We were up about 5,000 AGL. Usually we're about 2,500, but with just the terrain variance, we weren't going to mess with anybody we just took a high position so we could cover the whole fire. And, I'm listening to the lead plane, I'm listening to the fixed wing, and we're just kind of doing our thing, talking to the ground. They were doing a recon. And one of my biggest nerve-wracking moments is midday helicopter recon with fixed wing operation. And it's just because recons are recons. They're trying to do their mission. They don't have a predictable flight path always. I'll talk to the pilot like, hey, you going clockwise, counterclockwise? Okay, give me a call, check in here, just because a lot of these helicopters are hard to see, and especially up at 5,000 AGL. And of course, they'll start working back towards, and then they turn around. So I watch them like a hawk. And especially with the lead plane there, I was like, they got the fixed wing. I'm going to keep an eye on the rotor wing. We had a Type 1 that was they were at Mesquite on a fuel cycle, 2 Type 3s at Helibase, one doing a recon, one at the pad. The dip site was right there at Elgin. It's almost right at the heel. But so I'm sitting there watching the helicopter doing their thing, and I'm listening to the lead plane talk, and I heard him say, all right, hey, it was like a golden spike. It was almost like a Pac-Man mouth, I guess. Mm-hmm. And they were on one side of it, and these 2 last seats were going to basically golden spike the heel. So we'd have it lined, dozers working around, we could move on to more important parts of the fire. So I remember hearing lead make their call, and the seats didn't want to show me, so we just marked it. They don't get any better. It was a beautiful day. It was clear. It was a light wind, a little bit maybe off the nose, about 1 o'clock. The exit was a gentle left climbing turn, take you out over the valley, and it doesn't get any better. So I'm listening to this, I'm watching the helicopter, and the helicopter's now committed to Helibase. They're off the fire, I see them, I see the dust, I see the rotor, and so we immediately make a 90-degree turn, which brings us up basically on a crosswind behind the 2 seats. And so I look up, I look at the seats, I look at the helicopter, make sure he's on the ground. I see 2 rotors sitting at Helibase. I look at the dip site, which is right over where the seats were going to exit. Just, trust but verify. I trust but verify everything. I knew the Type 1 was in Mesquite getting fuel, but I still looked. I looked at the seats, and I remember remarking to myself, it was just an internal conversation, God, they look close. But, it's like when you're driving, it's parallax. Driving down the highway, you'll see 2 cars that look like they're right next to each other, but they're really 100 yards apart. So I didn't really give it much thought. So we did this kind of crosswind behind the seats. So the seats were off our right wing. I was at their 6. And then once we got a beam parallel, we kind of made another 90-degree turn so I could see the drops. And at this point, the lead plane had peeled out He was just getting out of the way and let them go. And I looked down at my knee board to just, it was one of those moments that I take. I'm like, all right, perfect time. Let's make sure I clear my plate. Am I missing anything? Do I need to follow up? And I saw my pilot right hand came into the view of my left eye. And then I couldn't make out the first word, but I heard something going around retarding on the windscreen. And I immediately look up and look right, and the picture just, it didn't match what I should see. And what I saw were two seats. They looked like they were wingtip to wingtip, and then immediately the seat on the right turned left into the other seat. And it was, without question, the most violent thing I've ever seen in my life. It was rugged. And all I remember was my pilot, bless his heart, the first thing out of his mouth was, "That was not your fault." And it's still hard to grasp. I can still to this day go, well, I could have done, but
Good for him.
You can't, I know, you can't, they're professionals. I respect their professionals. I'm not the FAA. I'm there to facilitate, coordinate, communicate. And granted, I wouldn't have said anything anyway. But you can't help but having culpability just by being there. But him saying that was able to snap me out of it for a sec. And I recently saw Mary Anderson, who was the dispatcher at Ely, was Ely's fire. And I hadn't talked to her really about this, but I did earlier this spring. I have no idea how I got words into a sentence that made sense. And she said, "I can't believe you didn't drop the F-bomb like every other word." And I'm like, I always try to be that voice of calm. And when things go south, my cadence gets slower and lower because that excitement just builds. But she said she knew something was wrong just by the way I was speaking, very deliberately and slowly, because we had things. And my first call was lead 49. I said, "Lead 49, we just had a midair between the two seats and radio silence." And evidently Greg had to tell Travis, "Dude, breathe." And he's like, "Say what? Say that again?" I'm like, "We just had the two seats collide." And it's such a foreign thing. The one thing I wanted to do in my career was get out of it before something like this happened. And granted, the rarity of such an event, I never in a million years would have considered the possibility of two flying together, fixed-wing aircraft in a flight, work together, colliding each other. There's all sorts of other more probable outcomes. Yeah. Fixed wing, rotor wing, fixed wing in the terrain, CFIT. But it was still to this day, that slide, it's there. It's there every day. It's like South Canyon. Yeah. It's like that, and there's things that have never been any. But so I remember talking to ops, and I was becoming mission ineffective at this point. Fortunately, Greg Birch was coming in to relieve me, and he was still a ways out. I wanted to get out of there. I didn't want to be there anymore. The image, it was fireballs. There was never any question. There was no need for EMS. None. It was that evident. And I wanted to get out of there. All I wanted to do was leave. But, fortunately, ops was still, a couple people were still mission effective. And they're like, "All right, hey, we're going to get a helicopter up and we're going to take a look at this," and thank goodness, because I was checked out at that point. I was just trying to get radio calls, and I was trying to get tankers stopped and it just was that situation. Had been, there are other fires where you got to keep the tankers coming. It was just, I was able to be like, and Greg, Birch colleague, say, "Doggett, I got this, man. Cut away." So we took off and went direct to Mesquite and grabbed fuel.
What was the climate like in the cockpit between you and Dennis, your pilot?
Quiet.
Yeah.
Quiet. it was still, I mean, basically I had to go down to treat us like a 5-year-old. I was like, each step, I'm like, all right, we're still flying a plane. Even though Dennis is the PIC, I'm still flight crew. And I'm watching, are we number one thing, fly your plane. And, so we were trying to get through all that stuff. And I just remember having that I sick to stomach. Mm-hmm. I just it was still processing. What in the hell did I just see? Mm-hmm. And,
what happened then when you got on the ground in Mesquite?
Well, we got there, and there were 2 other sea pilots. They were the guys out of Wells, Wayne and Colby. And I didn't know them really well. I'd worked with them a little bit, but I didn't know them super well. And because we had to get fuel, and I remember seeing those guys, and I didn't know them, but I knew who they were. And I stuck my head in. They were in the FBO, and I just remember giving them both a hug, because they knew these guys. They just dropped the mission before, but then the sea-based manager, Dave Wynn, he came down. We worked together for years, and it was still just, everybody was just dumbfounded. And my knee-jerk reaction was I called Alec, my handler, and told him, dude, I'm taking time off. I'm out. That's too much. So we kind of do our thing, and I think we maybe got fuel, and I said, hey, man, I'm going back to Elko. So we take off out of Southern Nevada and go back to Elko, and of course we're not over the Bishop or Beam it to the east, and you could see where the head of the fire was, but you see this new column started by the downed aircraft, and it was a very somber flight home. Yeah. It's a pretty, it's 45 minutes or so. It gave you plenty of time to think. And fortunately for myself, knowing myself, had I followed through with my knee-jerk reaction of taking time off, I knew I would go back and start drinking heavy. And I knew better. I've been down that road. It doesn't work.
Yeah, you've learned, huh?
I've learned, yeah. I finally know thyself,
So what did you do different this time to kind of stay out of that trap?
Well, I just knew it. I just knew it wasn't going to bring any good results. You can hide in a bottle, but only for a short time. I was tired of it. I know where that road goes. I've been down it so many times. And granted, it's, it works for a little bit, but it makes it worse on the other side, at least for me. I mean, it makes it a lot worse. And in Idaho, mental health, horrible. We're at the bottom of the barrel state-wise. I mean, you look at these national states as far of it, and it's Western states are considerably farther behind. I mean, just a generalization. But, I knew this was up to me. And I knew that if I went down that road again, I knew where I was going to end up. And this might be just enough to tip it to an actual successful suicide, if I got to that point. And hey man, I love life. I have a lot of fun. I really do. I look forward to every single day. I love my job. I love my friends. I've got an awesome, awesome life. And the fact that I can be so down and so depressed and so in pain that the 2 things that seemed like the reasonable outlets were, because, granted, exercise used to be it. And now that my body's so broken, I can't exercise like I used to. So it became, hey, ma'am, I'm just going to drink myself to death, or I'm going to eat a barrel. And those are permanent solutions to a temporary problem. And so by the time I got back to Elko, that was on July 30th, I said, all right, Alec, I'm staying in the saddle. I need to stay busy. I need to have accountability. And I knew if I was going to be sitting in the right seat, I would have my poop in a scoop and do the right thing. And I did. The 31st of July we sat, which was actually okay because we were trying to get stuff sorted out by accident review and things like that, just trying to get the fresh, it's fresh in our mind, But So that day went and kind of did our thing. I had a couple good friends. We just went and hung out. Didn't do anything crazy. I mean, had some wine, snacks in the park in Elko. It was awesome. It was a really fun night. And then my birthday, August 1st. And 53, 54, I can't remember, 53, I think. And it was up normal, man, briefing. Go through the stuff. Dennis out there working on the plane. I'm catching up on paperwork. And but boy, I'm sick to my stomach. I'm like, God, I don't want to fire today. I don't want to fire today. What do I get? A fire. And it was the Lost Fire. It was just north of I-80 over there between Wells and Wendover. And, I mean, it's 2000. We had a big grass load, good high country load. So fires are going big, going quick. And all I'm doing is crossing my fingers, calling in every bet I have with anybody's. Please let it be small. Please don't make me order retardant. I did not want to order retardant. I was scared to order retardant. I was fearful. I mean, and holy shit, pit of my stomach, And, if you don't know the topography, you come up out of Elko heading east, you pop over, got the Rubies and the East Humboldts, which are, 11,000, 12,000 foot peaks, so you can't see stuff. And of course, I got fingers crossed, toes crossed. I'm like, come on. Single tree. No. We crossed over these Humboldts, and I went, oh, son of a bitch. And we're still probably 60 miles away, and it's a gobbler. Big column, north I-80. I knew that, okay, I'm like, you couldn't tell spatially. Was it near Wendover? Was it by Wells? But I knew it was north of the interstate, just familiarity, but it was getting big fast. And I was sick to my stomach. I did not want to order seats. But I think I ordered 10. Those are kind of my default numbers in situations like that in Elko.
Kind of like your first jump, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was like, oh God, this is not what I want to be doing. But, oh well, and it was really difficult to get the order out. And I think I ordered 10, But, and I was doing my best to just keep this thing at bay and keep my shit in a box. And, of course, I get there trying to talk to the ground folks, access, anchor point, calling in size up to dispatch, trying to look at values at risk. I'm trying to get my big picture. And all I'm seeing is this midair collision fireball from 2 days ago. And I'm just like, dude, just keep it together. And that's, I'm getting to that point where I'm like, do I need to call in relief, Because I was rattled. I was second guessing myself, which is dangerous, I like to be 110% in my convictions and make my best decision given the information I have at the time. And I wasn't there. But I was like, all right, dude, fake it till you make it sometimes works. And sure enough, when Wayne and Colby, fantastic pilots.
They're the seat pilots.
The seat pilots out of Wells, fantastic. And they have a bright, happy voice on the radio. And I remember when I got that first call, hey, Tyler, we're here 12 miles. And it was like this, I don't know how to explain it. It was like all the anxiety, all the fear just vanished, gone. And it was like, oh, hell yeah, it's time to get busy. I go, let's put the boots to this thing. And it was Operation Normal. I mean, it was. I slipped right into it. I put all that stuff aside, and it didn't bother me. I was back in the saddle. And it was a really amazing feeling. But, I give Wayne and Colby a lot of credit for them being who they are. Not only are they phenomenal seat pilots, but they're just those kind of people you love to work with.
Yeah, and it had to be a hard moment for them as well.
Oh God, yeah. Oh my, everybody,
and for your pilot and the whole.
It was. I mean, it was a somber, but it was one of those like, all right, let's get it done. We got a job to do here, and it was that fire. I can't remember how many aircraft we had on it, but I mean, I'll take anything, everything, because it was going to hit I-80, close 80, and there was a bunch of utility and some cell infrastructure, stuff like that. And so, I mean, it was a high-risk fire. But, we ran. I think we caught it the next day, but it was a really cathartic, rewarding feeling like I still got it. you know. And if anything of, you know, from going back after breaking your femur, jumping out of the plane again, same thing, dealing with that sort of trauma and then jumping back in the saddle. And it was awesome. It was dirty August. We were busy. And burnout was starting to show up, you know. It's been a long summer. And I was getting tired. But everything was going great. We were catching fires. Yeah, most of them. But September rolled around. And we got quiet. And September 1st, September 2nd, September 3rd, 4th, 5th, I've been sitting thinking. And I knew where I was going. I was second guessing myself. Should I even be here? What the hell am I doing? You know, basically just berating myself over something I had no control over. But that's the way my mind was going. And it's kind of hard to, you know, for me to pull out of it. And we ended up on a fire, late season fire over on the Wasatch Front. And it was, I thought it was going to be a quick bucket work and everything. Everything was going to be over. The IC was comfortable, small fire. The helicopter, we had a dip site right at the heel, small fire. We got this. Dispatch, everything's cool in the gang. We got this. 10 minutes later, I was ordering every aircraft I could find. It transitioned. It got into some late season frost kill oak, and it was like a Region 5. It took off. And there was, we talked about ordering seats on that, and I think I was still reluctant. It was steep. It was a really steep fire. Terrain wasn't great. Visibility wasn't great. We had not only drift smoke, but all the smoke on this fire, power lines, all the hazards were there. And just talking to the IC, talking to the helicopter working, we said, let's hold off. And so I should have ordered seats. The fire took off and ran. And there was a woman and her child missing out in front of the head of this fire. And that, my hesitation of not ordering seats may cause a mother and child to die. And that is how I looked at it. I'm like, dude, you need to get out of this airplane and find some help. And that's when I was like, all right, I'm out. And thank goodness, once again, Greg Barrett comes to the rescue, and he sat on 8 Tango Mike for the rest of the season. And I was really grateful for that. And it was great. He was like, dude, all we did was sit too. We had a couple small fires, which have been really, really bad for my mental health. But if we can go back to that, I knew the path I was going down, and that's when I called Mike Kidwell, and I called Nelda, and I was like, man, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I don't deserve to be miserable. I don't deserve to drink myself to death. But I was going to, but I just got tired of it. And so fortunately through them, I got hooked up with, of course, it's peak COVID and telemedicine. If anything I will be grateful about COVID is telemedicine. It has come leaps and bounds that you can have a meaningful, ongoing sessions with a therapist on the other half of the country. His friend, her name was Amanda. She worked at Asheville, North Carolina. And they got me in touch with folks who specialize with police, military, fire, PTSD folks. And it saved my life. That I finally talked to somebody who knew what I was dealing with, who had dealt with it before, had been successful before. And it was amazing, the transformation.
It was amazing to watch as your friend, to see you and how you, even after the trauma of the Bishop fire in the summer, to see how you navigated that winter. You came through it so beautifully, really comparatively. The winter before, before. It was pretty amazing to see that. And what do you think, what finally clicked with you to do that?
Well, it was explained to me this way. Amanda was like, hey, so you broke your femur, right? Did you fix your femur? I said, no. She goes, you got a doctor to help you, right? She goes, mental health, same thing. You need to have somebody who knows how to fix you. You can't do it yourself. Because that's what I was trying to do. Hey, man, it's all in my head. Snap out of it. Come on, dude, get shit in a box. You can do this. And, I would try to do it and then fail and then start drinking and then try to do it and then fail and start drinking. And then I'd just be like, hell with it. I'm just going to drink. I'll keep kicking this can down the alley till it kills me or I kill myself. But it was a realization that, you know what, and there was hope. There was honest to goodness hope. And, and it wasn't medication. It was strictly talk and changing the way I perceive things and the way, your perception and reality, two different deals. Yeah. And it got me to a different way of thinking. And between that and the stuff I became a big fan of the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, their writings helps out a bunch. I mean, if you really get into that Stoic mindset, and it's rewarding, releasing, enlightening, and you'll really be able to take this stuff where, you'll hear when I'm in that mindset, in that dark place of, man, God, all this stuff's happening to me. God, I'm just a blah, 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 and you start beating yourself up. And then you switch to that different mode of thinking, looking at it going, hey, this stuff just happens. I just happen to be here. The only thing I can control is how I react to it. That's the only thing I can do. That's my choice. If I want to feel bad about it, start drinking, that's my choice. Yeah. If I want to feel good about it, take care of myself, it's my choice. So I think it was taking ownership and realizing that you can't always do it on your own.
Yeah.
And that was the defining gear shifting moment.
One thing you and I we've talked about in the past too, and you alluded to it, earlier in our conversation, but that role of a support system.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, between you, Jared Jasinski, Steve, I mean, there are too many people to list. There really are. But I've learned to rely upon them, and they rely upon me. I mean, it's a two-way street. I'm not the only person out there who has anxiety, depression, and drinks a lot who is a firefighter. Yeah. There's more than one,
Turns out.
Yeah, I'm not really unique at all. But the difference is of having not only the trust in them that they're going to be there to help you, but the trust in yourself to be able to be helped. Because it's really easy to deny these things. Yeah. I mean, hey man, I can,
Yeah, I can power through. I can do this.
Dude,
I got
slow
it.
Jumper, man. I can gut through anything.
Yeah, there's a vulnerability in asking for
there
help.
There's a huge vulnerability.
Very tough to do. I know it's a struggle for me, certainly, to...
Hey, superhero action figures, man, they can fix everything. No, they can't. There's got to be an uncle in there. Like I said, I wouldn't, I'm not going to try to fix my, my poor reading eyesight. I'm going to go see an optometrist. I'm not going to try to fix this. I'm going to go see an orthopedic surgeon, and I'm not going to try to fix my nugget. I'm going to go talk to a therapist or a psychiatrist, psychologist. And, it was really an incredibly empowering is the ability now that I have the tools, not only the tools that I've created specifically for me, but there's a lot of great science out there, supported science that enables you to separate, and I explain it, that your mind and your brain are two different things. Your mind is that sees the beauty in life and appreciates the moment. Your brain is a 12-year-old jacked up on crank and Mountain Dew. The brain is looking for problems to solve. The mind is there to be in the moment and to appreciate life for what it is, but the brain needs problems. And that's what happens, man, when fire season ends for me and I no longer have nonstop problems to solve. I make shit up. In the middle of the night, 3 a.m., wake up, I create all sorts of problems. Give my mind something to work on. And of course, we know how that goes.
Oh, yeah.
Phone calls, hey, what are you doing, man? I'm up. You up? Hey, what?
Yeah. I think I told you the other night I was up all night thinking the Riddler was in my house. Like, give me a break, right?
I always love those things at night that you wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror like, you were worried about what?
Exactly.
It's funny, and one thing I try to explain this to people. When I'm at the peak bottom or peak high or whatever, anxiety, depression, and this is that mind versus brain thing. So I'm looking, for an example, I'm looking at my gas stovetop, and my mind sees there's no flame. My mind sees the selector knob is turned off. My mind feels my hand held over the burner and there's no heat. But my brain is telling me this thing is going to blow up and burn your face off. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. It is really, really insane. And to be able to separate those two, and I got to give Dave Nemi, Alpine Hotshot, all the props on this. Dave had what a wonderful supervisor, but he would always, during roll call or meetings, he would call everybody by their name spelled backwards. So Tyler Doggett was Relit to God.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, Dave's got talent, man. He would do this for the whole crew. And so when I was working through this therapy stuff with Amanda, she said, you know what you need to do? You need to recognize that your mind and your brain are two entities, not always working together, a lot of times at odds. And your brain especially, you have to give it a name. And of course, chiral, one's good, one's bad, mirror images, Tyler and Relit. I started referring to my brain as Relit, and I tell Relit, dude, you're a jackass, shut up. So, go.
Yeah.
Leave me alone. I want to go back to sleep. And as silly as it sounds, it really works. It's just, it's like anything. It's a muscle, get exercise. Mm-hmm. But being able to stop those cascading, reverb, self-deprecating, horrible rabbit holes you go down in the dark.
Yeah.
But once you get it, and you realize those thoughts aren't that scary anymore, which is really profound, at least in my case. Yeah.
What would you say is like a key lesson for folks having experienced this relationship you've had with fire and the highs and lows? What are some key lessons people should take away from your story?
Ask for help. Find someone you trust, or find someone you don't know. You're not vulnerable. You think you are, but you're not. I wear my insecurities, my failures, my weaknesses. That's my armor. I could care less what people think of me. I really could. Except, I try to, but my shortcomings, I could care less. It doesn't matter. That's my armor. I mean, hey, I can mess up a sunny day. I'm not worried about that. I make mistakes nonstop. It's okay. Just move on. Try not to do it again. Learn something. That's it. It's okay. The whole suicide thing it's so personal, and I don't want to do it any discredit by anyone else because it's really a terribly personal thing. And what has gotten you to that point, how much pain you're in. Anything else is better than that. Being on the recipient of it with my brothers and seeing everything afterwards and feeling that there is no way I could do that to another person, myself. Even though I can't, it's heartbreaking. There's always another option. You might not see it, but it's always another option. And for God's sakes, ask for help. It's tough. It really is.
Well,
it's a difficult job we do. It's incredibly taxing. It's emotionally taxing. It's rough on your family life. It's demanding, trauma-inducing. Respect that. Accept it. We're just human, man. We all make mistakes. Just live another day to make more mistakes tomorrow.
Remember the rules.
Yeah, rule number 1, stay alive. Rule number 2, see rule number 1. Rule number 3, always get up one more time. It's like anchor, flank, and pinch. Works every time. But it's tough. I mean, I still carry that slide with me. Every time I see seats on final. Yeah. South Canyon, I carry that slide with me. There is no allusion to our exposure. It's a very hazardous environment. I don't say dangerous, it's hazardous. Danger implies something else, but we have a lot of hazards we face. And, you've got to be honest with yourself each day. Am I fit for duty? Because your not fit for duty day could be someone else's worst day of their life because, you weren't honest with yourself. Be straight, man. Got to take yourself out of the rotation, take yourself out. No big deal. That was a hard part. That was the hardest thing for me to get beyond, was disappointing somebody. Or at least I thought I was disappointing somebody. And they're like, no, dude, you got to take care of yourself. We got this. But of course, I was shirking on my responsibilities, so that would, we're so horrible to ourselves, generally speaking. We're our harshest critics. Go easy, man. I had a friend of mine that I was in a particularly dark moment and was basically talking shit about myself, putting myself down pretty badly. And she looked at me, she goes, hey, don't talk to my friend like that. And she's like, would you ever talk to another person the way you talk to yourself? I said, no. She goes, don't forget that. And that stuck with me. We don't deserve what we say to ourselves. At least I don't think I do. Some people might be different, but it's the mental health game is tough. I'm so grateful to see that it is now becoming more mainstream in our organization.
Well, I so appreciate you sitting down with me and talking, offering your perspective.
It's my pleasure. If anybody can get anything out of this, it's time well spent. If anybody needs anything, call me.
Yeah.
I don't judge. I'm more than happy to help.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Can't wait for work to start.
Yeah. Aircraft comes on soon.
Yes. Monday morning, be on back on 8 Tango Mike, and can't wait.
Nice. Well, I appreciate it, and we'll be seeing you.
Cool. Thanks, Kelly. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Tyler. A big thanks to Tyler for his candor and vulnerability in our conversation. As he says, this is tough work, and these are human struggles anyone might face, no matter how skilled and competent we are. There is help available, and treatment works. If you're looking for help, a good place to start is at the NWCG Mental Health Subcommittee webpage. That can be found at nwcg.gov/committees/mental health subcommittee. The Wildland Fire Training Annual Refresher, or WFSTAR program, also produced a video and module addressing wildland fire mental health. This information can be found at nwcg.gov under the training menu in the WFSTAR catalog. There are links to additional resources in both of these spots. And no, the Suicide Prevention Lifeline is available 24/7 at 988. I hope you take to heart Tyler's emphasis on surrounding yourself with a great support network. And remember what Tyler says, always get up one more time. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you for listening to the Wildfire Lessons podcast. Be sure to subscribe, share, give us a review. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Wildfire Lessons. Music provided by second-generation smoke jumper Steve Baker, who always likes to keep one foot in the black. Thanks, Steve. Remember, we honor through learning.